Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for rejoining me today on Untold Evidence. We are up to episode 82 in our journey. Today, Immaculate Constellation. Now, those of you know it, it's a big one. We've got a big one. I don't know where I stand yet. Let's have a little talk about it. There is a document sitting inside the official record of the United States Congress right now, and it's about 11 pages long. It describes in flat, bureaucratic language a secret government program that collects photos and videos of objects that should not be able to do the things they are doing. Objects that box in fighter jets. Objects that rise out of the ocean. Objects that move against the wind with no visible way of moving at all. The name of the program is Immaculate Constellation. And here is the part that makes this one different for almost every other UFO story you've heard. The Pentagon did not laugh it off. The Pentagon did not say it was a weather balloon or a swamp gas or a trick of the light. The Pentagon did something much stranger. It said the program does not exist. No record, present or historical. Nothing. It has never existed and there is nothing to find. So we are left with a very specific kind of mystery tonight. Not, is this real? That's the wrong question, and I'll show you why. The real question is this. How do you have a detailed, written description of a classified program entered into the congressional record by an elected member of Congress on camera, yet a formal denial from the Department of Defense saying the program was never real? Now, both of those things at the same time, and no way for the public to tell which and who is lying. Now, that is the box we are climbing into today, and I'm going to do what we always do. We're going to split everything into the three tiers. Tier 1, documented. That means it is on the record, it can be checked by you and I, and it happened whether you believe in any of the rest of the story. Tier 2 is contested. This means serious people disagree about what it means, and both sides have a case. And tier 3, our favourite one, speculation. That is the wild stuff, the stuff we spend real time on, but only because I've labelled it honestly first, so you always know which shelf you're standing on. So let's go back and start with the documented. October 2024. An independent journalist named Michael Schellenberger published a story on his newsletter, Public. Schellenberger is not a fringe figure. He has written for major outlets, he has testified to Congress before, and he's built his reputation on sourcing government whistleblowers. Now, in that story, he said a whistleblower had come to him with the name of a secret UAP program. UAP standing for unidentified anomalous phenomena. I'm not sure if I've ever fully defined that here or classified it. It is the term the government now uses instead of UFO. Before UFO carries too much baggage. Same object, cleaner label. The name the whistleblower gave him was Immaculate Constellation. Now, the Pentagon responded fast. Within days, a Department of Defense spokesperson named Sue Goff put out a statement. And I want to read you the exact wording, because the exact wording matters. She said the Department of Defense has no record, present or historical, of any type of special access program called Immaculate Constellation. No record. Now, that is a denial with no soft edges. There is no we cannot confirm or deny here. There is no we are looking into it. It's just a straight flat no. And then 5 weeks later, something happened that a flat no does not usually survive. The 13th of November 2024, the House Oversight Committee held a public hearing. The title of the hearing was Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, Exposing the Truth. It was co-chaired by Representative Nancy Mace and Representative Glenn Grothman. 4 witnesses sat at the table. First up, retired Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, a former Navy oceanographer, Louis Elizondo, the former Defense Department official who used to run the Pentagon's earlier UAP effort, Michael Schellenberger, the journalist, and Michael Gold, a former NASA associate administrator. And this was not some obscure side room event that nobody was watching. This hearing was the sequel to the one the year before the one where a former intelligence officer named David Grush, we speak about all the time, sat in the same kind of chair and told Congress under oath that the United States had recovered craft, of even had non-human biological material from crash sites. I mean, non-human, that is madness to me. That testimony had already cracked the topic wide open. It had forced a bipartisan group of lawmakers to form what they called a UAP caucus, whose entire purpose is to find out what program exists and how they are being paid for. So when Immaculate Constellation landed in November of 2024, it didn't land in a vacuum. It landed on the top of a year of sworn testimony and Congress that had already started asking harder questions than it had asked for 50 years. Now, we've walked through the Grush's claims before, as well as Elizondo's, and the earlier Pentagon effort in their own episode on this channel. And today is the one where the story stopped being about witness remembering things and started being about physical documents with a program's name printed on it. So during that hearing, Representative Mays took the document that Schellenberger had brought, the description of Immaculate Constellation, and she entered it into an official congressional record. On the record, distributed to every member on the day, she said out loud that she was entering into the congressional record the document that describes the Immaculate Constellation government program. Now sit with the collision there for a second. The Pentagon says no, there's no record, never existed. Yet a sitting congresswoman says, well, here's a document describing it, and I'm now making it part of a permanent record that sits in the United States legislature. Now, both of these are tier 1. Both of these are documented. Both of these actually happened. And they cannot be both true at the same time. Now, there is one more moment from that hearing that we've got to say, because it is either chilling or absurd, depending on where you sit, and you guys get to decide. May said on the record that Representative Anna Paulina Luna had just told her that simply saying the words Immaculate Constellation out loud could put her on a list, possibly a surveillance warrant under a law called the FISA, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And Mace's response was, and we're going to paraphrase a little bit, come and get me. She said it into the microphone. Schellenberger said the same thing in his testimony. He said a source had warned him that printing the name could trigger surveillance of whoever published it, that they would not comment on it, but talking about it would put you in a danger zone. Just saying the name. Now you can read that two ways and we'll come back to both. But as a documented fact, it happened. Elected officials and a journalist stated on the record that they had been warned that saying a program's name could get them under surveillance, a program the Pentagon says does not exist. Now, you don't usually get a warning for something that doesn't exist. So let me lock down the rest of the tier 1 spine, because it's the foundation that everything else stands on. The document itself claims to be the product of a multi-year internal investigation. Its claim it was delivered to Congress through the official Whistleblowers channel, the one that Congress actually set up in law in 2023, the Defense and Intelligence Authorization Act, specifically so that people inside these programs would have a legal way to come forward. And it claims that the public version of it was reviewed and cleared for the release by the State Department's Public Affairs Bureau. Now, those are claims made by the document. Whether they are true is a different tier, but the document making them is documented. There is also the government paper trail on the denial, and this is where it gets a little bit comical. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the ODNI, released a document under the Freedom of Information Law. Its case number is DF 2025-00021. Its title, quite literally, Description of Alleged Immaculate Constellation Program. It's 1 page long. And what does that one official government page contain? A summary of the press reporting and Sue Goff's denial. In other words, the government produced an official document about a program it says does not exist in order to say it does not exist. The only government paper that names Immaculate Constellation is the paper denying its very existence. Now let's fast forward to January 2026. It went one step further. A researcher from an outfit called the Black Vault, which has spent decades filling freedom of information requests on the exact topic, asked the Pentagon to simply search its own email system for the phrase Immaculate Constellation. Not to hand over secrets, just to run a keyboard search across emails and say what came back. The relevant office declined to even run the search. Think about that. The program that never existed, an email costs you nothing to send. It comes back empty and the story dies. Declining the search isn't proof of anything, but it is a choice, and a documented choice. So that is tier 1, a journalist with a sourcing track record, a named whistleblower channel written into law, a document entered into congressional record by an elected official on camera, a flat Pentagon denial, and a one-page government paper that exists only to deny it, a refusal to run a simple email search. None of that tells you the program is real. All of it is real. Now we move to the shelf. We move up a shelf to tier 2, contested. And this is where the honest disagreement lives, and I'm going to give you both sides as best I can. I would be doing exactly what the whole topic accusing the government of doing if I didn't. So the first contested question is the obvious one. Is the whistleblower real, and is the document authenticated? Well, here's the case that it is. Schellenberger says he's verified the person's identity. He says that there are current or former government officials with genuine access. He says multiple independent sources corroborate the name of the program to him separately, and he made a specific, careful point about this. He said the new whistleblower did not know the other people who would confirm the name, which means it is not what the skeptics can call circular reporting. Circular reporting is when rumours bounces between a small group of believers until it sounds like independent confirmation, when really it's the same claim wearing different coats. Schellenberger's argument is that the source sits outside that loop. Well, here's the case against it. It is a single anonymous source. We do not know their name, their rank, their department, or whether they were staff or a contractor. Schellenberger withheld all of it, and he had good reasons to. He said the person feared for their safety. But the effect is the same. We cannot check them. And the Pentagon's flat denial is not nothing. Sue Goff put the department's credibility behind a specific claim, no record ever. That is a falsifiable statement that someone could theoretically be caught lying about. They made it anyway. Personally, governments lie all the time. I don't want to be that raging conspiracy theorist and go because the government said it, it's false. But I do struggle to take the government seriously, any government, when they deny anything like this. Not to say that it might be true, but I've got a good long list of things I'm pretty sure I can unequivocally tell someone, yeah, they lied there. Anyway, nobody outside the classified walls can tell you if it's true or not. That is why it lives in tier 2 and not tier 1. But notice what is really being contested. It isn't the, did a man bring a document to Congress? We know he did. It's the, is the content of the document true? And the content is where the fight is. The second contested question is bigger, and it is one I think actually matters most. What does unacknowledged do to the whole argument? The document says that Immaculate Constellation is an unacknowledged special access program. In plain English, a special access program is a layer of secrecy above ordinary classification. An unacknowledged one is a program whose very existence is denied, even to most people in government who would normally be allowed to know. And here's the trap that it creates. If the standard, official, correct response to an unacknowledged program is to deny it exists, then a denial tells you nothing. A denial is exactly what you would expect from these programs, fake or real. The denial is not evidence the program exists, but in a strange way, it's not evidence at all. It's just the sound the system is built to make when a question is asked. So now the skeptic has a sharp answer to that, and I'm going to give it to you because it's a good one. The skeptic says that it is unfalsifiable, and unfalsifiable is a warning sign, not a mystery. If every possible piece of evidence, a denial, a refusal to search, silence, all of it, gets read by believers as a secretly confirming the program, well, then that theory can never be wrong. And a theory that can never be wrong isn't that strong, it's empty. And I think that's a fair hit. We're going to hold on to it, but we are going to come back to it at the end because it cuts deeper than it first looks. The third contested question is about a real office you have heard me mention before, the AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office. It's the Pentagon's public official UAP investigation team, and the AARO's position has been consistent and clear. It says it has found no evidence that any of these objects are extraterrestrial, no evidence of a secret reverse engineering program. It even said that the persistent rumours of hidden UAP programs are the result of the circular reporting that we've described, a small group of believers that are just taking it in turns to convince each other. But here is the contested twist, and it is genuinely serious. The Immaculate Constellation document does not say that AARO is lying. It says that AARO is being kept in the dark too. It claims the real data is deliberately withheld from the AARO. And if that were true, if there was a program specifically designed to hide information from the very office set up to find it, then the AARO saying we found nothing would be completely honest and completely useless at the same time. They would be searching an empty room whilst evidence sat in the room they are not cleared to enter. So when they tell you it found nothing, the real question becomes nothing or nothing they were allowed to see. Both readings are alive, and that is why it has to be contested. And I'll give you one document anchor that keeps this from floating away entirely. Its own historical review, the AARO acknowledged a real program called Kona Blue. Kona Blue was an actual approved effort inside the Department of Homeland Security that was set up to receive and reverse engineer recovered exotic technology. Its own account is that Kona Blue never went operational because no such technology was ever actually recovered to hand to it. So even the official skeptical body admits this. The government did at one point formally stand up a program built to reverse engineer craft. It just didn't have it. That's documented fact, two opposite lessons. And that's tier 2 in a single sentence. There is a fourth contested question, and it is the one the lawmakers themselves keep circling back to. Forget the objects for a second. If a program like this exists at all, funding, staffed, collecting, then who authorized the money? And who is watching the people spend it? Congress controls the budget. That is written into the Constitution. It's one of the few genuinely hard powers that the legislation has. So an unacknowledged program that Congress is not cleared to know about is not just a secrecy story. It's a story whether the branch of a government that holds the purse strings has quietly lost the ability to see where some of the money goes. Now, when we go into government debt in the modern Western world, I don't think anyone can argue there are black holes in that budget. In the comments, can anyone tell me a Western country that passes an audit, the government? I don't know any. So the fact that we don't know how these programs are funded, but we do know that governments are in trillions in debt. I don't want to draw imaginary lines, but there is something to think about there. So we have built the floor and we have walked the contested middle. Now we go to the top shelf, the fun one, tier 3, speculation. This is the part that people came for, and this is the part that I love to talk about. We're going to give it to you in full, but every single claim I'm about to describe comes from that whistleblower document. None of it is confirmed. None of it has been shown to the public. What you are getting is a description of a description. And for the big ones, I'm just going to do something specific. I'm going to tell you exactly what one piece of evidence would drag the claim from speculative to the documented, because the claim cannot test if it's just a story. Now, the document describes 6 reoccurring shapes catalogued across encounters stretching from roughly 1991 to 2022. Spheres and orbs, discs and saucers, ovals, the tic-tac shape that people talk about from the Navy footage, triangles, boomerang or arrowhead forms, and a category the document calls irregular or organic. Now, the last one matters because it does not sound like any aircraft. It sounds like something that was not manufactured on a production line. Then comes the specific encounters, and these are vivid. There is the F-22. According to the document, a group of orbs, somewhere between 3 and 6 of them, surrounded a United States F-22 fighter jet on patrol. The jet broke trajectory and tried to evade. The orbs intercepted it and boxed it in. We are talking about one of the most advanced human fighter jets that has ever been created. One of them, the report says, held an exact fixed position relative to the cockpit, matching the jet's movement precisely, no matter what the pilot did. The F-22 is the most capable machine humans have ever built. And we're saying that an orb matched it. So not only have you got one of the best machines ever built, it's piloted by one of the best pilots to pilot it. And these orbs matched it stride for stride. So what would promote that to tier 1? The sensor data. An F-22 does not fire blind, it records radar tracks, targeting data, cockpit footage. If a single verified, dated F-22 sensor file showing that the encounters were released within a chain of custody, that stops being a story that a journalist talks about and it becomes one of the most mental documented events the world can ever see. But that is the specific key. It exists if the account is true. It just needs to be shown. There is the orange red sphere too. The crew of a Navy aircraft reportedly watched an orange red sphere descend from high altitude, and afterwards they described something odd, a feeling of unease, a sensation, as several described it, of having snapped out of a trance. Now, the detail is where a lot of people's skepticism kicks in, and rightly so. Reported feelings are the softest kind of evidence there is. But I've got to give it to you as it's reported. It's tier 3, labeled as such, but leaving it out would be dishonest. And there is one thing that if it is real, it changes the whole ballgame. The document describing a 13-minute high-definition, full-color video, a white orb rising out of the ocean near Kuwait, filmed from a helicopter. And its name is where the file allegedly sits, on an SIPR net, SIPRnet, which is the military classified network for secret level material. 13 minutes, 1-3, full color, high def. It's not a blurry dot. Now, that is a document. If it exists, changes everything. So what would promote that to tier 1? Well, it's obvious. The video. Release the 13 minutes with its metadata and chain of custody intact. And there's nothing left for us to argue about. You either see an orb rise out of the sea or you do not. Now, this is the single most testable claim in the entire document, and it is the one that has never been shown. That gap, a claim this specific, this checkable, and this unreleased is exactly the thing that should keep an honest person balanced on a knife edge, refusing to fully believe, but you have to refuse to fully dismiss. And then there is the phrase in the document that goes the furthest of all. Reproduction vehicle. The document describes triangular craft, one seen with bright lights at each point and a bar of sweeping lights hovering and rotating over the ocean before vanishing. Another over the Pacific, an equilateral triangle about the size of a fighter jet, holding perfectly still directly above a ship whose crew had no idea it was there. 3 reproduction vehicles is a craft built to reproduce something. The implication buried in that phrase is that somebody, human or otherwise, has been building copies. Now, that is the reverse engineering claim smuggled into a single piece of jargon. It's the most explosive idea in the entire document, and it's also the least supported because it's an interpretation of an interpretation. It sits at the very top of tier 3, and we've got to see that for what it is. There's also the jellyfish shape moving against the wind with no visible propulsion, crossing the southern border. There is a boomerang off the coast of an unnamed country that slowed to a hover and then, from the point between its 2 wings, gave off an expanding sphere of light that swallowed the craft. There is a saucer that came out of a cloud, registered hot on infrared, then reversed and climbed back into the cloud, described in the document as if it had realized it was being watched. Every one of these is annoyingly tier 3. Every one is a description with no public footage or verifiable footage attached. And I've got to be clear about it. The strongest claims in this entire story are the ones with the least public evidence. Welcome to the world of UFOs and UAPs. The strongest evidence in the entire story is attached to the least dramatic facts. The drama and proof are sitting in the opposite ends of the room. That's not a reason to dismiss it, but we've got to keep our heads on the ground when we talk about it. So let me do the one thing the channel will never want to skip, the counter narrative. And we've got to do it as strong as ever. There's some heavy hitting statements here. So we're going to start with the simplest explanation and take it seriously. So everything in this document to date could be real footage of an entirely earthly things. The triangle fighter jet looks like a B-12 or could look like a B-12. The last few years have taught us out loud on record that a great deal of what gets called a UAP turns out to be drones, adversary drones, surveillance platforms, even our own classified aircraft, that the pilots watching them are just not cleared to know about, which means an American pilot can have a completely genuine, completely terrifying encounter with another American pilot, file it as honestly as an unidentified object, but unidentified does not mean aliens. It just means they don't know where it came from. Secondly, we have not seen a single frame, not the F50 or F22 data, not the 13-minute Kuwait video, not the triangles. Everything we've described so far, there is no physical verifiable evidence for it. It makes it very challenging. The UAP topic has a bad habit of treating a vivid description as the same weight as a release file. It's not, and we've got to say that as plainly as possible. And I want to give the skeptic a concrete recent example because it's the strongest thing on their side of the table. Think back to the wave of mystery drone sightings over military bases, and at one point over entire stretches of the country. For weeks, people filmed lights in the sky they couldn't explain, and a lot of very confident voices online said that this was it, that this was the disclosure moment. And then, in case after case, the mundane answers came in. Ordinary aircraft, hobby drones, even planets, and yes, in some cases, genuinely unauthorized drones that turned out to be entirely earthly security problems. Now, the lesson there is, it's not that everyone lied. The lesson is that the sky is full of things that we can't always identify. And a sky full of things that cannot be identified does not mean aliens. Human beings are pattern hungry. They're frightened of what they cannot name and cannot understand. And the gap that I do not know what that was to that was not from here, well, that's a common thing. A responsible version of the topic keeps that gap in mind at all times. Third, the circular reporting problem is real. We talk about it all the time, and the skeptics did not invent it to be annoying. Rumours genuinely do bounce around a small, passionate community until they harden into something that feels like independent confirmation. The AARO went further than that. It compared the persistence of these secret program rumours to social contagion, to the way a false belief can sweep through a population and feel completely real to everyone caught up in it. They researched specifically for the satanic panic of the 1980s as the comparison. Back then, an entire country convinced itself of a network of secret ritual abuse that investigators later found essentially no evidence for, and it destroyed real lives along the way. Now, that's a heavy charge to level, and it is meant to be. The AARO is saying, in effect, you are not looking at a cover-up, you are looking at a shared belief that has leaned to feel like a cover-up. Schellenberger's defense, that his source sits outside that loop, and it's reasonable. But it is a defense we need to take on his word because we cannot see the source. That's not nothing, but it's not proof. An honest observer has to hold both possibilities open at once. The government is hiding something, and that a community wants something to be true so badly that it confirms it by itself. Fourth, and this is a sharp blade the skeptic owns, so I'm going to hand it to them fully. The unacknowledged program argument is unfalsifiable, and I told you we could come back to it. If a denial secrecy confirms that a program and a refusal to search secretly confirms the program, and silence secretly confirms the program, and the total absence of any release footage secretly confirms the program, then there is no possible world in which a believer would say, you know what, I was wrong. And a belief that has nothing that could ever disprove it, that's not a strong belief. It's just a closed feedback loop. It's a serious problem, and anyone that wants to be honest about this has to acknowledge that problem. So here's where I land after all of it, and I think both are true. They are both trying to answer a question the evidence cannot answer yet. Is it aliens, yes or no? And then treating the absence of a clear answer as a win for that side. But look at what it actually documented. And a different, quieter story comes into focus, and it might be more important than anything else. Strip out every orb, strip out the triangles and the Kuwait video, the reproduction vehicles. Put all of that into tier 3 and to move it to one side. Now what you're left with? You are left with this. A document describing a program that hides information from congressional oversight was entered into the record of Congress. Elected officials from both parties said they had been warned that even naming it could get them surveyed. The Pentagon refused to run a keyword search on its own emails, and the office built to investigate all of this says it found nothing, while the central allegations is that it is being deliberately kept from the very thing that is supposed to be investigating it. Now, none of that requires a single alien. Every word of it could be true in a universe where UAPs are entirely mundane, and it would still describe a real and serious problem. Parts of the national security state operating beyond the reach of the people constitutionally responsible for watching them. That's not a story about little green men. That is a story about who actually controls the most secret machinery of the government and whether anyone we vote for is genuinely allowed to look. If the extraordinary claims are false, that problem is still there. If they are true, it's far worse. But either way, the oversight question survives. So here's the single piece of evidence that would end the whole debate. Not testimony, not a document about a document. One authenticated, dated, government-verified file. The F-22 sensor tracker, or the 13-minute Kuwait video, released in full with its own chain of custody intact. That is the key that turns every one of these Tier 3 claims into Tier 1 instantly. It exists. If any of this is real, it has never been shown. And until it is, the honest position is not belief, but it is not dismissal. It's that uncomfortable middle ground, holding the tiers to account and the evidence with them. The document is still in the record. The denial is still on the books. The video, if it exists, is still on a network you and I will never see. And the constellation, immaculate or imaginary, is still up there, described in detail, denied in full, and proven by nothing. This is where the evidence actually stands. Not where either side wants it to, but just where it is. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think this one will have more episodes in the future because as disclosure comes out, this is clearly a serious one. I personally find the truth of it, so the Tier 1 as we see it now, terrifying. It makes me so uneasy that private firms can have more control than elected officials. I think personally it undermines democracy to the full. If we've misrepresented or misinformed on this episode, please drop us a comment. Please like and subscribe. We're producing some really good videos lately, or at least the audio of the videos. I think some of the episodes we're digging in really deep and we're putting forward some fantastic arguments. So please support the channel. If you think we can be better, you just let us know how and we will put that into action. Any recommendations, let me know. Thanks as ever, guys, and we will see you in the next video.